Grab a drink, everyone.
Tippity toppity, down with the Nazis.
The latest season of The Crown is here, and with it, absolutely brilliant performances by Olivia Colman, Josh O'Connor, and newcomers to the series, Gillian Anderson as the Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher, and of course, Emma Corrin as Princess Diana. In this video, we'll be explaining some of the season's biggest moments, which covers a time period from 1979 to 1990, and what it could mean for Season 5. Remember that Season 5 has a totally new cast, kind of like what the show did between Seasons 2 and 3, so you want to stick around to the very end to see who will be playing those new roles. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm hoping to come out with a separate video in the upcoming days on the key differences between The Crown and what actually happened in real life, so you'll want to be here for that. It is an ending explained, so how about we start with the very final scene of the season. This is Christmas, a time supposed to be filled with joy and happiness, but for Princess Diana, it's a prison. She's pretty much the only one in the Christmas photo not smiling, cast off to the side away from her husband and children, just like she's cast off from the rest of the family. As she descends the stairs, the director has aligned her head with the antlers of a mounted animal, as if she's some prize to be hung for the enjoyment of the royal family. She's the only woman to be wearing all black, as if it's a funeral, and for her it might as well be. The last two scenes completely foreshadow her eventual death. When Philip comes to cheer her up, which doesn't really go the way he plans it to, Diana tells him she's going to leave Charles, to which he responds,
I wouldn't do that if I were
Why
you.
not?
Let's just say, I can't see it ending well for you.
If that wasn't foreshadowing enough, take a look at the very final shot of the season, a solitary camera flash. Camera flashes from the paparazzi were said to have blinded the driver of Diana's car the night it crashed, leading to the eventual death of the princess and her lover Dodi Fayed. I also found it interesting that the very last shot of the season is juxtaposed with the very first shot, that of the Queen, two close-ups of two powerful yet very different women. But to understand how Diana got to this place, we must venture back to see how her fairy tale turned into a nightmare. Diana's first encounter with the prince dressed as a mad tree from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream didn't actually happen. Although it's a nice throwback to how Charles wanted to become an actor, in reality Charles met Diana at a hunting weekend when she was 16 years old, and believe it or not, Charles and Diana met on only 13 occasions before he proposed. For Diana, this was a fairy tale. In fact, episode 3 is called just that. She is legitimately in love with Charles and goes out celebrating with her girlfriends. Little does she know, her life is about to spin out of control. The merry-go-round behind her and Charles foreshadowing this, as well as the multiple shots of the spiral staircase depicting her descent into a life that will lead to her death. For Charles, this is no fairy tale.
Whatever in love means.
With the love of his life, Camilla Parker Bowles, married to another man, Charles is pressured into finding someone new to marry. Pressured not only by his family, but the one he loves.
You need to find yourself a young woman who's free to be where you want, when you want, and who's willing to give up her whole life for you.
And Diana fits this perfectly. She's a part-time cleaner, part-time kindergarten worker who could drop everything at the drop of a hat to be there for Charles. But the event that really solidifies Diana as a frontrunner for Charles's hand in marriage is her trip to Balmoral Castle. In episode 2, titled The Balmoral Test, we see how Margaret Thatcher fails miserably. Diana, however, passes with flying colors.
In the history of Balmoral, no one has ever passed a test with such flying colors.
Even Princess Anne says to Charles that it's written in the stars that they be together. She did, after all, help Philip catch that elusive stag, and it's Philip who drives home Charles's duty to marry.
You made the family position painfully clear. They want me to marry her.
So we can see this fairy tale is far from ideal. A young woman in love with a man who's in love with another woman. In fact, this fairy tale reference is articulated by Princess Anne later in episode 9.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young girl who fell madly in love with a handsome prince. Unfortunately, the prince was already in love with someone else, who was herself in love with someone else, and they all lived unhappily ever after.
Charles himself cries on the evening of his wedding, juxtaposed to the celebratory fireworks in the background. Although unsubstantiated, it is said that Charles told Diana the day before the wedding he was not in love with her. She thought about leaving, but went ahead with the wedding anyway. The real disintegration of the marriage begins when Diana finds out about Charles's love for Camilla. During a lunch date with her, Diana finds out how much Camilla knows about Charles and how little she does. They have fun nicknames for each other, Fred and Gladys, which she'll eventually find custom custom-designed bracelets Charles made for Camilla. They talk every day on the phone while she can't even get a hold of him. It's not until their tour of Australia everything comes out. For once, the two are brutally honest with each other, so much so that they actually patch things up and things seem to get back on track. Even Charles decides not to pick up his calls from Camilla. But that is short-lived as Diana takes the spotlight on their trip. He begins to resent her for the attention she receives while he is mocked and made a fool. One need only look at the Charles of season 3 and how he was neglected, sent off to school, and pushed into a life that he didn't really want, to see why he now craves love and attention, because he never got that from his family. So when Diana comes along and takes that love and attention away from him, he's resentful.
He resents me, resents the attention I get.
Diana tries time and time again to make the marriage work, but at every turn, Charles finds something to get upset about. When she performs a dance for his 37th birthday, he thinks it's all about putting attention on her, stealing the limelight from him. And even when she goes out of her way to make a video of her singing from Phantom of the Opera with the cast of the actual West End production, he tells Anne it's god-awful. It's kind of ironic then when Charles cries out to Anne asking what it takes to get some kindness in this family, when he himself shows almost none to his wife. In the season's final episode, Charles tries to argue to Camilla that the public would understand if he broke up with Diana and went for Camilla because he'd be following his heart. But Camilla is smart.
To be the protagonist of a fairy tale, you must first be wronged. A victim.
The Crown does a great job at painting both Charles and Diana as victims, while also highlighting their flaws. Diana is shown in all of her humanity, good and bad. We see her struggles with anorexia and how she looks for love with other men when her husband won't give her any. And that humanity is what made her the people's princess.
Evidently, that clinging is what the Australians have responded to. What a natural mother she is. How physical. And caring.
Charles, however, is painted more as the villain this season, perhaps even more than Margaret Thatcher herself, and the Iron Lady presents this season with its second major conflict, that between the Queen and the Prime Minister. In 1979, Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister as head of the Conservative Party, and the Queen's initial reaction was one of promise. She'd have her first female Prime Minister to have weekly chats with, and what better inspiration for young women than a strong female leader, right?
But I have found women in general tend not to be suited to high office.
Oh, why is that?
Well, they become too emotional.
Thatcher's nickname, the Iron Lady, is perfectly suited for her, a cold woman ruling with an iron fist without compassion. She has a fundamentally different approach to how the United Kingdom should be run from how it used to be. Margaret Thatcher was a firm believer in Reaganomics, basically policies that put emphasis on the individual rather than the state.
Britons are learning to look after number one, to get ahead, and only then, if they choose to look after their neighbor.
The UK at the time was going through a recession with massive unemployment. Instead of providing a robust social safety net for those most at risk, Thatcher did the opposite and cut spending for such programs while waging a multi-billion-dollar war in the Falklands. That's what led Michael Fagan to break into Buckingham Palace to talk with the Queen. He said the system has been so gutted and broken he had to take drastic measures to talk to the only person that he thought would listen to him. Thatcher's emphasis on pushing sentimentality aside is shown in her position on apartheid South Africa. Rather than side with the other 48 Commonwealth nations in imposing sanctions, all she cares about is the bottom line, the billions of dollars in trade that would be lost should the sanctions proceed. Her lack of compassion also extends to her family, as she strongly favors her arrogant, entitled, and bratish son over her daughter. The conflict between the Queen and the Prime Minister starts when she's invited to Balmoral. However, it isn't until later in the season, when the Queen leaks her disapproval of the PM's decision on South Africa, that it comes to a head. The Queen's policy has been to never express an opinion or pass judgment on any of the Prime Ministers, so this was a big deal. And as the credits at the end of episode 8 show, the palace continues to insist she never said the stuff Michael Shea leaked to the press. In the end, however, Thatcher and the Queen spent almost 11 years together with roughly 164 meetings together. Thatcher was, in her own words, cruelly torn from her party and forced to resign, but later the Queen would bestow her with the Award of Merit, an honorary title first awarded by King Edward VII in 1902 for those who provided distinguished service to the state. Although Charles and Anne are the more prominent of the Queen's children in the series, we also get small cameos from Princes Edward and Andrew, and bonus points if you caught the absolutely creepy scene in which Andrew talks about loving a movie about an underage girl on an island full of perverts. This was totally the show's nod to Prince Andrew having been a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, frequently visiting his island of underage women. Switching gears, to really understand the series, one must also understand its masterful use of juxtaposition and double meaning, or as the French say, double entendre. I just like saying that. Episode 1 sees the juxtaposition between hunting and assassination. As Mountbatten is stalked and hunted by the IRA, so too does the royal family engage in the hunt. Charles fishes, Mountbatten catches lobster, Anne shoots the stag, and Philip hunts birds. Episode 9's title engages in double entendre being called Avalanche. Not only is this episode about an actual avalanche, the avalanche is a metaphor for what's happening in Charles and Diana's marriage. Episode 10, titled War, has even more meanings. We see a war between Thatcher and her party, war between Charles and Diana, war between Thatcher and the Queen, and an actual war between Britain and its involvement in the Gulf. And one of the last things I want to discuss was who will be playing the new characters for the final 2 seasons. Now, I should mention that the last 2 seasons will likely only cover the 90s and maybe early 2000s. So for those of you looking for William and Kate Middleton or Harry and Meghan Markle drama, you're out of luck. So we have 4 confirmed castings, including Imelda Staunton as Queen Elizabeth, Jonathan Pryce as Prince Philip, Leslie Manville as Princess Margaret, Elizabeth Debicki as Princess Diana, and not confirmed but rumored Dominic West as Prince Charles. Still no word on who will play the Queen's other children, Camilla Parker Bowles, or Prime Ministers John Major and Tony Blair, who would likely be covered during this time. The new season won't be out until 2022 at the earliest, so put on a cup of tea and subscribe to my channel in the meantime. I'm hoping to come out with another Crown video in the next few days, so be sure to stick around for that. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like the video, share it, and leave a comment about what events you think will happen in Season 5 in the comments below. For more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.